How do? My name is Andrew Hancock and I am a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with VMware since their birth in 1998. So that's been a quarter of a century now. I've been working with the VMware product catalogue. Some of my close friends say if you cut Andy in half, it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I have now written over 130 articles and recorded over 30 hours of VMware vSphere 7 and 8 videos for Experts Exchange, and received 40 Expert Exchange awards over the last 11 years working with the Expert Exchange community. I am currently the overall #1 point earner in the Hall of Fame. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program since 2011, and I'm currently a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 4 years. How do, and welcome back to another episode of Hancock's VMware Half Hour. It has been a while, but I've been very busy. Today, middle of July, weather is not doing very well in the UK, so it gives me a moment away from the bees. Okay, so back to the lab. You may remember, if you've been following this series, that we've got 3 Dell PowerEdge servers in our lab: ESXi 007, ESXi 009, ESXi 011. 2 are Dell R720s and 1 is a Dell R730. All of these now are no longer on the hardware compatibility list for 7.0.3. Excuse me, I've got a 100-day cough. That's what the quack tells me. And it's still giving me a little bit of an issue. And I think we're about 60 days in now, 70 days in, something like that. So until I get to the 100-day point, I can't go back to the quack and have a moment to get rid of this 100-day cough. So I do apologize. Okay, so what we're going to do today in this lab is we're going to upgrade our current 7.03 hosts, which currently they're on update 3D or build 194.82537. And we're going to update them to the latest version of ESXi 7.0.3 N, which was released on the 6th of July 2023. Now, I have covered this before, and I have done a video on it at Experts Exchange on updating 7.0.U1 to 7.0.U2 using VMware vSphere Lifecycle Manager. I'm doing exactly the same thing again today, but I'm going to change it slightly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the latest 7.0.3 N, and I'm also going to use the OEM A12 edition from Dell as well. I see too many Experts Exchange posts these days manually updating hosts, using ISOs, booting from the ISO, or basically doing offline updates. Stop. Use vSphere Lifecycle Manager. It takes an awful lot of the headaches out of it. It will actually check for incompatible VIBs and tell you what to do with them. And as I think more and more people are actually starting to use vSAN, it does all the heavy lifting around what's actually basically required to update hosts within vSAN. So have a little look at this video, have a little look at the last video, have a little look at this video, and use vSphere Lifecycle Manager, which will certainly aid you. It's free. It's a free function as part of vCenter Server. And what we're going to do today, we're going to set up an image against our cluster, and we're going to remediate all 3 hosts in our cluster. And then later on, we'll come back and we'll see that they're all at the latest version. Excuse me a minute while other soft drinks are available, by the way. And sugar Pepsi Max. Okay, so it has taken me a while to polish this lab, to get it back into a situation where we can actually use it. It took me all day yesterday, and maybe I probably should have just done an off-the-wall video. It would have been long. It would have been about 8 hours as to how we actually basically get all the lab working again, because bits and pieces were broken here, then everywhere, which was mainly DNS. Okay, so getting into our video, I have already updated vCenter Server to the latest available. So we're running vCenter Server 7.0.3 build 219.58406, which was released in July as well. And done a video for that. already for you on how to update VMware vSphere vCenter Server 7, VCSA 7 using the VAMI appliance interface. So I don't really need to go over that again. And obviously in that video, I had a little bit more hair and a bigger beard. Although the beard is actually basically a little bit big now, and I really do need to cut this for tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to select our cluster. We're going to select our EE cluster. And we're going to select updates. And we're not going to use the baseline option. We're going to click image. And we're actually going to set up an image for our cluster. So this will be the image, the ESXi 7.0.3 image, which will be applied to every single host. So I'm going to select the version. So hopefully here I've got the 7.0 U3N released on the 6th of July 2023, which if we go back to my little notepad document here, it tells me the latest is there. So that's the version that we're going to use. And we're going to use the vendor add-on. Now, we're going to use the vendor add-on because these are vendor OEM servers. So they're Dell servers. If you're using HPE servers, Fujitsu servers, you will find that you can use a vendor add-on as well. So I'm going to select the vendor add-on. And I'm going to use Dell Power Servers running 7.0 U3 A12, which I know is the latest as well. And I'm going to select that. Now, this is the first time I've done this on non-hardware compatibility or non-verified servers. So I'm going to click validate. And that will basically just check the image. And then basically we can select save. You can actually use the firmware and drivers add-on if you've actually got specified licensing and contract with your vendor. So I'm going to click save. So that image 7.0 U3N and the Dell add-on, the latest Dell add-on, is now the image that's being created for our cluster. Now the cluster compliance is being checked, and that's where it's actually going to check the ESXi version 7.0 U3N against our cluster, and it will warn us of any incompatible VIBs that we may need to deal with. Either we need to remove them beforehand, or it may actually also fail here and turn around and tell me that the hardware is currently not on the hardware compatibility list and it's not going to proceed. So I'm just going to wait, otherwise I'm going to waffle on. I'm going to speed all this up in post. So I'm just basically going to pause this for the moment. Okay, checking image compliance against the cluster took a while, but it's actually worth doing it against your cluster before you remediate, because you will then be able to dig down into the reasons why some hosts are compliant with the image and some are not compliant with the image. So if we look in this example here, ESXi 009, although it has a little triangle, it says this host is out of compliance with the image. So it can apply that image against that particular server. And the same with ESXi 011. Little triangle, it just says the host is out of compliance with the image. It actually gives you a breakdown of what it's going to do. It's going to go from D to N, from A04 to A12. It's actually going to show you the current VIBs that are installed on that server that will be removed. And I'm aware that it has a Synology add-on for the NFS VAI, which is going to be removed. And the same with this one. This one also has the Intel MAS tool. We'll talk about that more later, but that's to do with the Intel Optane drives that I've received as part of the vExpert program, the demo units that have been received as part of the vExpert program, which is the reason to update this cluster to the latest version, so that we can start talking about Intel Optane and vSAN. And I must extend my thanks to Mr. vSAN, Simon Todd, and Matt Mancini VM Explorer for all the hard work that they've done around vSAN and enabling us vExperts to get our hands on some Intel Optane technology. So I've not actually mentioned it here, but in these 3 servers, we have 10 to 12 Intel Optane U2 NVMe drives that have been supplied to us by Intel. Thank you very much, Intel, as demo units, so that we can actually basically try them in our labs for vSAN in this particular case. So I wanted to get this lab up to date first of all, and then we're going to start talking about vSAN, and we're going to start talking about Intel Optane. But anyway, back to this. So you can actually see here, which I must admit, I'm going to have to scratch my head, and I'm puzzled by this, because ESXi 007 is a Dell R730, which is actually newer than 9 and 11. And this one's actually basically saying it's not compatible with the image. Not out of compliance, not compatible. So it's not going to basically remediate this image that we've created against the server. And it's actually, if we look at the exclamation mark, it's complaining about a downgrade of an add-on, a Mellanox component. I'm probably going to have to go away and do a little bit of a deep dive on that and find out what's going on. You can actually basically also see that it's telling us that the CPU of this host may not be supported in future releases, which we all know about. So all I'm going to do is click Finish Image Setup. Yes, I'm going to finish with the image setup. So that's now going to set that image up that we've created against our cluster. And then what we can do, I'm going to run, I think it's already doing it. It's setting the solution. I was going to click remediate all, but I think we're just going to have to wait for it to do its stuff. So I'm just going to turn the mic off and the camera off, and you can watch that. Okay, so I've been pondering over, I'd like to remediate the entire cluster by, normally you would have a button there that says remediate all. And it would actually remediate all the servers in the cluster. At the moment, I've only got an option that says remediate this one, remediate this one. But because this host is not compatible with this image, it is not going to apply this image to that particular host there. And I've been actually having a little look at this error here, and we're not using the Mellanox native OFE Connect X3 driver in this version of ESXi, and this is what's actually basically causing the problem, which is actually sort of kind of said to you at the very beginning, that if you actually use Lifecycle Manager, it will do all the heavy lifting for it, and it will check all the VIBs, and it will basically just turn around and go stop if you've got a particular problem. So what I'm going to do very quickly is I'm going to enable SSH, as again SSH is not permanently running on this server, so let's just enable SSH and the shell on this server, so that we can actually, I had hoped that this was going to be a quick video, he says. So I'm just going to add ESXi 007, and of course I've showed you how to enable PuTTY and how to enable PuTTY. I've showed you how to enable ESXi shell and SSH before, and I've showed you how to use PuTTY to log into the servers. So I'm just going to open that, accept that. I'm going to log in as root, and So I've been digging around using ESXi software vib list to have a little look at the vibs. And the problem, I think, extends to the OEM version of the Dell ISO or add-on that we've used here to build this server in A00. Because looking back at the other two servers, 911, I used A04 to build those, probably much later. And I can see here these vibs which belong to the Mellanox NML-X4 core, EN, RDMA core. These are all OEM drive, all OEM vibs. We're not using them, so I'm going to remove them all. Now, it's going to take a while to fetch those vibs off the SD card media that we're using. It's only a lab, not production. So we are using SD cards. I know it's a bit of a naughty. So that's going to sit there basically removing those vibs. The server's going to require a restart. Then we're going to have to do the check compliance thing all over again. So, you know, these are the pains really that we see in production. So you're sort of kind of seeing it live. So I wanted to sort of kind of show you that if we actually even use vSphere Lifecycle Manager, it's going to show us the problems. It's not going to proceed, but it is actually going to give us pointers as to what we need to do to actually basically make our hosts ready so that they are compliant, so that we can apply our image. Now, if we were doing this using an ISO CD-ROM, we probably would also have warnings as well. And if we were to do it offline upgrade, we'd probably have error messages as well that would make it a little bit more difficult to find out what we need to do. So I'm going to bob off. I'm going to get some coffee. I'm going to drink my Pepsi Max. I'll leave this running. I'll speed it all up in post, and we'll let this complete. We'll restart the server, and then we will run the compliance checker again, and we'll come back to the point whereby I can hit that button that says remediate. Okay, well, so that's actually basically telling me that they have been removed. Now, and as it turns around, it says reboot required here. So I'm hopefully just going to turn around and say, we'll put that into maintenance mode. Hopefully it's going to move my virtual machines that are currently hosted on here to other servers. Just having a little look, waiting for all VMs to be moved. Okay. Should have HA and DRS installed. So it should move my VMware vCenter Server 7, which I think is on ESXi 007. And I think it should meet the DNS server, which is Sawtail off there as well. But it seems to be pausing. Anyway, let's reboot this server. Let's sort this out, and let's actually come back where we can hit that button that says remediate all. So I'll speed all this up in post, and we'll do a summary at the end. So I'll be back shortly. So welcome back. You may have noticed that ESXi 007 no longer has the reboot required next to it. We rebooted that server. So ESXi shell is still enabled and SSH is still enabled on that server. So let's just turn those off. So we're going to go down to quickly to services, and I'm just going to say stop. And I'm just going to say stop so that we've got no errors or warnings displayed. Okay. So another thing in the background there, whilst I was rebooting that server, I noticed a number of things that were not allowing the virtual machines to move automatically off 7 to 911. One EVC on this particular cluster wasn't enabled, which was strange because it used to be. So that was something I needed to do because the CPU generations between 7 and 911 are different. So we've just quickly configured an EVC cluster of Ivy Bridge, which is the processors in 9 and 11. I've actually basically created an EE video before showing you how to get out of this issue with EVC if you've got machines powered on, so I'm not going to go over that again. But I also noticed as well, one of the other error messages that was coming up in the vMotion was a network interface issue, where it was actually basically saying that vMotion needs 1 gig or more, and I thought, well, that's a bit strange. And then notice here that VMnext 0 is 100 meg. Now, I've seen this before on this particular server. So whether or not that we've got a flaky network card or a network port, which it can't be, because recently, as part of the lab rebuild, I've replaced all the switches and I've replaced all the network cables. So maybe it's just really a quick in and out that it needs, or a swap of a cable. So I'm just going to quickly pause this, and I'm going to go around the back, and I'm just going to unplug and replug. I'm not going to pause it. I'm just going to turn the cam off and the mic off, and you can see whether or not in real time it actually comes. Okay, now I'm back. So you would have seen there that has actually basically switched to a gig. And that's interesting. All I've actually basically done is just change 2 ports around. I think that powering on and off these servers puts these ports in a very, very strange state. And I also noticed that ESXi 11 also had, okay, you can see here it's 100 meg on NIC 1 there. Very odd. Very, very odd indeed. New switch, new switch, new network cables. Just let me pop round the back. I did notice when I was round the back of the servers that one of them's got an orange light, which is 100 megabit, but I thought I'd actually rectified that. Anyway, just let me pop round the back again, and I'll just turn the cam off and the mic. Okay, I'm back. It's possible that there is a faulty network cable round about there. I'll probably need to check that later. Anyway, so when I wanted to get back to being able to remediate our entire cluster, so if we select the cluster, if we select updates, now I'm probably going to have to go check the compliance again. So I'll run the pre-check, and we'll get ready to where we can click remediate all, because of course at the moment the compliance has not been checked since we actually removed those VIBs. So I'll just bob off, and I'll let this record, and I'll speed all this up in post. Well, that's not what I was expecting to see. Host status is unknown error while performing this operation. I was expecting it to come back and tell me that it was now in compliance. So I know what, for shits and giggles, let's just click remediate all, and see what happens. Impact summary, yep. Start remediation. This is going to take a while, as it actually basically starts to prep. You can actually basically see the remediation steps here. You know, whereby it's going to remediate, I hope 7, 9, 11, but it may not necessarily be in that particular order. It's going to migrate all the virtual machines off the host. It's going to enter maintenance mode. It's then going to apply the image. Then it's going to shut down, restart the server. You may have actually noticed that it turned around and said that Quick Boot is not enabled on these servers or compatible with these servers. Quick Boot is a function whereby it can quickly reboot your host after it applies the image. Not applicable for R730 or the R720, but later servers, 740, 750s, you can use Quick Boot feature, which certainly does really speed up upgrades, updates. Okay, so I'm just going to bob off. This is going to take a while. I won't be at all surprised if this takes 60 minutes or more to complete. So we'll speed all this in post, and then hopefully we'll be able to come back as it's done the hosts each in turn, and they'll all be updated to fresh and shiny ESXi version 219.3.0.508, or we'll have broken hosts. So let's keep the faith, and I will come back shortly. Okay, so I'm back. Taking a lot longer than I thought, but I did actually notice that ESXi 011 had a memory fault, and yeah, it got hooked up on the reboot, so I had to manually intervene and give that server a poke to reboot it. But anyway, as we can see, ESXi 011 has been seamlessly updated to 7.0.3 219.3.0.508, which is release N. ESXi 009, again, you know, that went through flawlessly, with no requirements for me to do anything. And of course, as we saw at the beginning, this failed the compliance check, so it just skipped it. So what I'm going to try and do, again, I'm going to go back to updates. I'm going to have a little look at the image. I'm going to run a pre-check this time, see whether or not that it actually basically finds anything that's obvious. You know, an unknown error occurred while performing this operation, doesn't really give us an awful lot to go on. May require a host restart again, may require agents to be restarted, or I'm going to have to maybe start doing a deep dive in the logs. So I'm going to put this on pause, speed it up in post, and then I'll see whether or not that there's anything obvious that I can report on as to why this is failing now. Just going to a little wait here now, because it's actually basically checking compliance of cluster 63%. Is it going to complete? I tell you what, I will come back shortly. Okay, so I've been deep diving and I've been having a little look at what appears to be the problem. And this is a specific problem here in the lab, or if you're on a Dell OEM platform and you have the A00 release and you're trying to patch, you may remember that I removed some previous VIBs which were causing me an incompatibility problem, the Mellon-X native OFE Connect X3 driver, which I removed because with those leftover drivers that were in A00 weren't in any other release by Dell. So effectively it would sort of kind of downgrade them. So that's why the host was not compatible with the image. So removed those so they were no longer the image, so that hopefully we could do the check the compliance and it would pass. However, there does appear to be an issue in the vCenter server database, looking through the VUM logs, that causes a problem, which would, in the long term, probably have to go through and remove all the OEM drivers and then try and reapply the image. So as a quick shortcut, what I actually did was I went old school and I updated the host to 7.0.3n by basically using the 5 quick easy step method direct from the internet. Once I've then done that, that's actually basically knocked out the OEM version A00, and it allowed me basically to run the compliance check, and now I can remediate. So I'm now going to basically select remediate. A little bit long-winded, but we sort of kind of got there in the end, or we will get there in the end. So now we're actually remediating the final host. So effectively what this is really actually going to do, it's going to sort of kind of do an upgrade of 7.03n. The host is already at 7.03n, but what I'm doing as well at the same time is I'm actually adding the Dell add-on for the PowerEdge server running 7.0U3A12. Technically, again, these hosts aren't on the HCL, so using a Dell add-on PowerEdge really could actually cause more issues possibly than what it's worth. But it just makes all these ESXi servers exactly the same build throughout the lab, although ESXi 007 is an R730. So in this particular case, the R730, the R720 weren't really the problem. The problem actually was in the original installation I'd done on the R730 with the A00 Dell add-on with 7.03, upgrading as we went has actually basically caused this issue in hindsight. So that's the issue. Anyway, so I'm going to I'll let this carry on recording. I'll speed it all up in post, bolt them all together, and then I'll come back and do a quick summary when this has been completed. So I'll catch you later. And we're back. Well, we can see that ESXi 007 has now restarted. The compliance of the cluster is being checked, but we are running on ESXi 007 219.30508, and it's also basically now using the vendor add-on that we wanted. So our cluster is now managed by a single image, and everything is compliant. Not quite sure why host 11 here is actually basically stating that its status is unknown, possibly because we're currently checking the compliance of the cluster. So in summary, we've used VMware vSphere Lifecycle Manager to create an image based on ESXi version 7.03n, build 219.30508, and we've also used the Dell add-on for the PowerEdge servers A12, which is the latest version. So if you've got OEM servers, please have a little look at using Dell Lifecycle Manager. It really does take all the heavy lifting in that you can basically set to remediate your cluster, walk away, and come back later on and find that all your hosts running. Keep the faith. If you actually basically want to remediate each individual host as you go, because you don't have the faith to remediate an entire cluster, then you can do it that way. Anyway, so this was leading up to my next videos, which will be about Intel Optane and the technology and how we use them, and using those basically to create a vSAN cluster in our 3-node lab. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching, and come back soon.